Hello, everyone. It's Mrs. Fida, and today what we're going to work with is your multiplication algorithm. And we're going to not only be thinking about the regrouping that happens in the ones place, but we're also going to be thinking about what happens when the regrouping happens in the tens place as well. The examples that I'm going to work on with you are actually examples taken from your assignment for today. Okay, if we take a look at our first example, you can see we have to estimate, and we can easily estimate with our multiplication by rounding. If you take a look at 34, you might remember our rounding rules that if it's less than 5, you go down, but if it's more than 5, you go up. And you can see we have less than 5 in our ones place. So if we round 34, it would be rounded to 30. And if I have four groups of 30, that's 30, 60, 90, 120. So we could estimate that this would be 120. Okay, now let's go ahead and do some of the math. As you work with your multiplication algorithm, we always start in the ones place, and we know our first step is to multiply the two numbers here in the ones column. So if we take a look at 4 times 4 in our partial product box over here, we can see 4 times 4 is 16. That's a basic fact we're really good with. And then I want you to take a look at that number because, as you know, when we write any numbers out, we can only have one digit in each place value. So like we talked about before, this 10 right here really is going to come over to this side. And so when we do our algorithm, we're going to need to remember to add this 10 in. Okay. Now our next step is to go from the ones place over to the tens place in our multiplication. And this time we're doing 4 times 3, but remember it's really 4 times 30. We can think of our basic fact of 4 times 3, which we know is 12. But then if we're going 4 times 30, just in our like we did in our estimate, we know that equals 120. 120 is made up of 12 tens. I can't put a 12 here. So I'm going to need to think about how this 100 is actually now going to move over here to the hundreds place. And as we do our algorithm, let's see what that would look like. So we know 4 times 4 is 16, but we can only put the 6 here. The 10 is coming up over here. So there's that 10 that we're carrying over. Now we know 4 times 30 is 120, but I need to add another 10, which makes it 130. And 130 is 13 tens, but here's that 100 that came over here. So when we take a look at doing our algorithm, we need to remember we're starting here in the ones place. If we have a 2-digit number, we need to carry that 10 over to the tens place. And then we multiply our ones times our tens place. And if we get a number that's greater than 100, we need to carry that over here. So you can see now that our product of 34 times 4 is 136. We estimated 120. That sounds right because we did estimate 30. So we made this lower, so I could see why that estimate is lower. Let's move on to our next example. Our next example has 29 times 4. So when we go ahead and estimate, 29 is almost, we have to round up, 30, right? And 30 four times is 30, 60, 90, 120 again. Okay. So we have 120 again for an estimate. Let's take a look as we do the math now. We start with our ones place and we go 4 times 9. And you can see we have that written over here in our partial product model. So we have 4 times 9, so we know is 36. And in looking at that, that's 2 digits, so I know I'm not going to be able to write 36 here. Notice what has to come over into the tens place this time. Now we don't have just one 10, here we have 3 10s. So we're going to need to remember to add that over here in the tens place. That's going to be carried over, that 3. Now when we look at 4 groups of 20, I know 4 times 2 is 8. And then I'm going to add the 0. So 4 times 20 is 80. Okay, well, 80 would fit here with an 8 for 8 tens, but don't forget we also have the 3 tens, and when we combine 80 plus 30, that is greater than 100. That's going to equal 110. So we're going to have to bring that 100 over here. So we're going to want to be careful about that when we're multiplying in our algorithm. Okay, let's take a look and see what our algorithm will look like now. 9 times 4 is 36. I know I have to only put the 6 here, and I have to carry that 3 over here. Okay. Now, when I carry that 3 over here, I need to know 4 times 2 is 8, or 80. 9, 10, 11. So that's really 11 tens. So I have 4 times 20 is 80, 90, 100, 110. So you can see that's going to be the same as 11 tens. So when we multiply 29 times 4, we get the product of 116. And again, we could take a look at our estimate and see we were pretty close. I hope these 2 examples will help you as you work with your assignment your teacher gave you today. Just remember, when you're regrouping that extra value that has to be brought over into the next place, don't forget to add that in. Be very, very careful. Work with precision on your basic facts. And if you're finding you're having trouble with those basic facts, take a few extra minutes each day to practice them. When you practice, you get really good at something. I know you can do it. Have fun.